the first time is always the hardest time. So for anything, the very first time is always the hardest time. But if you break the shackles and do it, then for sure it comes by practice.
Hello everyone, Ken here, back with another interview for you today. This guest called in all the way from Germany. Vijay Pravin Maharajan has had quite an impressive career in data science as well as a speaker. He was named on the top 40 data scientists under 40 in India, and he was the first Indian-born man to be invited to give a TEDx talk in Germany below the age of 30. Vijay came from an electrical engineering background and currently works for the German branch of Siemens, where he's a data analytics expert. If you're interested in learning more about him after watching this interview, you can find some additional details as well as some really good content on his LinkedIn, where he boasts over 33,000 followers. In this interview, we focus on how to transition into data science from less traditional majors like electrical engineering, how to break into data science roles in other countries, which is a much requested topic, and how to get comfortable with public speaking. Please enjoy the interview. So Vijay, thank you so much for coming on. I think you have such a cool story and you do such awesome public speaking work within the data science realm. You're really able to make a lot of these very complex concepts sound so straightforward, even to kind of the layperson here. I'm really excited to share your story with my community, especially how you got into data science, how you went from studying electrical engineering and moved into learning the data science skill set, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Again, thank you for coming on.
Yep. I mean, it's early morning for you guys. Early morning for you, I guess. For me, it's 7:30 in Munich. So I live in Munich, Germany. So thanks for taking up your time. So my data science story isn't a straight road. So I had to dig in a lot of stuff. I had to do a lot of self-taught learning, self-taught programs. So back in 2013, I came to Germany to do my master's in electrical engineering. So I am not someone who has close connection with data science. So from electrical engineering to data science is always a tricky path. Even nowadays, it's forget about 2013. So even now it's a tricky phase. So I had to do a lot of YouTube lectures. I had to take up a lot of courses online, like platforms like Udemy, Coursera, Udacity, Linda from LinkedIn. So I had to go through all these stuff before I had my first impression on data science. And luckily, I got a student job where I was working with Telefonica, which is a mobile telecommunications company in Germany. So I got that opportunity, grabbed it with both the hands, did that well, did an internship, and also converted that to a master thesis. So that's how it went from zero. And now I am pretty confident that I have got a good name in Germany. So I'm one of the recognized data expert here in Germany. So yeah, that's in short.
That's awesome. And was there anything in the electrical engineering degree that you think did contribute? I mean, I'm a big believer in every step of life. I did business. I even studied environmental science for a little bit in college. But all of those experiences, I think maybe even if they're small, they still contributed to that learning journey for me.
Yep. So being an electrical engineer, I had a solid foundation in mathematics. So that helped me a lot, of course, understanding the depth of some of the concepts, some of the statistical concepts. And I did electronics and instrumentation, to be precise. So while taking up instrumentation, I had to deal with a lot of sensors, actuators, where I take a lot of data readings, let's say from thermometers, from pressure sensors, from actuators. I grew up playing around with a lot of data. So that helped me a lot, I would say. But yeah, in general, taking up engineering was helpful, to be honest, was helpful to me. So even if it is not exactly related to data science, it helped me in certain facets of my data science career.
Well, it also sounds, like your first internship was probably a reasonable hybrid between data science and electrical engineering. And that's something I really always like to stress is that you take your pre-existing skills. Let's say I came from a marketing background. There's no reason I have to jump straight into data science doing like financial data science for financial markets, right? I should start doing data science on marketing data because I'm combining that field I already am very comfortable with and moving forward. And I also think that, just in general, dealing with sensors now, you fast forward to 2020, that's probably one of the coolest emerging areas of data science, machine learning, AI is the combination with robotics and getting the sensor data. And so I think it ended up turning out pretty well, right?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, now it's like the rolling the ball reverse. So a lot of people are now working on Internet of Things, which is again like devices communicating with each other. So ultimately, I started with something, came into data science, and now it's like rolling backwards. And I could see a lot of devices communicating with each other. Let's say your smartphone communicating with smartwatches. Your smart kitchen is there, smart home is there. So I could imagine a bulk of data that is being released from every single day from a lot of components.
It's unbelievable. I mean, NVIDIA sent me over one of their little Jetson Nano devices for me to give away on my for one of the videos on my channel. And I mean, the things that are relatively cheap and very powerful, where you can do, AI, machine learning, even on the devices now, even on the things that are collecting the data themselves as sensors, is mind-boggling to me. And there is a huge component of those. I'd love to kind of stay on that same lane, but talk a little bit more on the career side. And you said you started with an internship, and that was one way that you were able to start working outside of India, get a job in a different country. That's something I have absolutely no experience in. I mean, I've worked in the US my whole life. I don't know what it's like to apply. Do you have any tips, any other pathways for people who are saying, okay, I do want to work in in Germany, in somewhere in Europe, in the US? What are some of the best practices there?
I would say for fresh graduates, they can come for a master's to Germany. So that's one of the cleanest option and easiest option, in my opinion, to grab an opportunity in Germany later. So that is one. And if you are already working in a company, let's say in India, in anywhere in the world, you can grab an on-site opportunity. So people call it an on-site opportunity, where you will be sent to Germany for, let's say, a couple of months or 3 months or 6 months. And then people come here, just switch to the local employer here, and they make use of that opportunity. That is the second option. And the third option would be directly applying to jobs in Germany. But the third option is like rather difficult because people, HR, they usually give preferences to people who live locally. So let's say people who live in Germany, at least who live in Europe. So that's the hardest option, but of course it is also one of the viable options. I know people who just came directly from India after working some time in India. So that's also possible.
That's awesome. I think with those first two options, something that I'd really like to highlight is that, sorry, I'm drinking some sparkling water, and
no problem.
Really like to highlight is, when you're talking about sales in general, which can be a little bit different from data science, you have the idea of a warm transfer and a cold transfer, right? So a warm transfer is when you talk to someone who you're already familiar with, you already know, and that gives you a higher probability of closing the sale. When it comes to jobs, if you're going through a university, universities have relationships with a lot of these businesses, and that gives you a higher chance of landing one because you have that connection there. Same thing if you're already working in the company, that's probably the hottest transfer. You already have the job, you just have to move within, and that process is so much easier. I see so many people that they're like, okay, I got all these internships, now I can't get a job. What do I do? It's like, well, you should be asking the companies that you got the internship with. Your goal with the internship is to hopefully work at that company after you finish and get an offer there.
Yes.
So, people aren't looking at it as like, they're just racking up experience. They're not looking at that like it could be the end opportunity, which they 100% should be.
Exactly. So they're not thinking about the conversion ratio. So most people, they just grab an internship, and as you said, they're just racking up the experiences. So they just want to boast their profile as if they have done 4 5 internships in different firms, and they have wide range of opportunities and experiences. But that's not the case. So you should always have that in mind. So it's always uh, first about the conversion factor. So if you get an internship, do that well, convert it to a master thesis or a bachelor thesis, do that well, grab a full-time opportunity. So that's the safest bet. Rather than again starting from scratch and looking for jobs, this is the closest and safest option.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me also that when people, really smart data scientists, approach the job process, the interview process, all of these things, they forget to think about it like how a data scientist would, right? If you're building a model to predict if you'll get a job, the relationships that you have in a with people inside of the company, the number of recruiters you talk with, have a lot more predictive power on if you'll get that job than even how many applications you apply for, right? The traditional way. And so it's like, well, let's think about this problem as though it's a work problem or it's a data science problem, because we'll improve our chances. This is a great opportunity to use data science in your real life. I mean,
exactly.
As crazy as it sounds, if someone during the interview process at my company told me they went about interviewing in a very systematic way like that, they're like, oh, I built this model about my success rate. I've been tracking my performance, and I know that I have a 7% higher chance of getting an interview than the next guy because of XYZ. I mean, probably shouldn't tell that to every employer, but that to me would be fascinating. I'd be like, yeah, let's get them to the next round. So, a big part of your life now is doing some public speaking. I know you've done a TEDx talk, correct? And one of the first in Germany, correct? I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear that story of how that happened, and I'd also love to hear more about that experience. How do you get comfortable speaking in front of an audience? I know a lot of data scientists are a little more on the introverted side than the extroverted side.
So, I mean, if you look back at my speaking experiences, I was an introvert at the beginning. So I never had a chance to speak in bigger stages at the beginning. So I slowly worked on my shortcomings. So I had to work on my shortcomings. I just found where I was lagging, and I started doing that repeatedly. So be it a smaller stage or a bigger stage, I started speaking out. So I went on to speak with a lot of people. I went on to speak with a lot of conferences and workshops. Started developing that as a side hustle to my job, and I was constantly conferences, international conferences and workshops. So a couple of professors, they invited me for a TEDx talk by seeing one of my conference talks. And to be honest, that was really surprising. And who would miss out on a TEDx opportunity if the opportunity is knocking at you? So that's how I ended up as a TEDx speaker. But I would say in general, start speaking out. I mean, don't think about the stage fear or the people in front of you. You will, of course, make mistakes. So while you are speaking in front of a huge audience, you will be nervous. That is for sure. And you make mistakes. That's for sure. That's default. But don't worry. So everybody starts from zero. What you should have it in mind. So start speaking and break the shackles. Get onto the stage, grab a mic, speak something. Even if you fail, doesn't matter. It is perfect after a while, I mean, you have to do it repetitively. So what are things that you are doing it in repetition comes good. So it gets better after every time. So that's why I always suggest people to speak out. So, I mean, the first time is always the hardest time. So for anything, the very first time is always the hardest time. But if you break the shackles and do it, then for sure it comes by practice.
Awesome. There's two things that I really liked about what you said. The first thing is that you said you started out as introverted, and
Mm-hmm.
you might still be introverted in a lot of settings, but
Yeah,
you know introversion, extroversion, the it's situation based, right?
yeah,
So
that's true.
most people who are introverted, when they're with their family or friends they're really close with, they're actually extroverted in that setting. And so
Exactly.
this isn't something that is set in stone. It's not something that is static. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that, based again on the situation, you can condition yourself to
Mm-hmm.
become very extroverted or very introverted. And
Exactly.
I think, again, a lot of people really don't understand that. They just think that that's who they are. I am introverted.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I'm always going to be. And no, that is absolutely not the case. I'll try and find some academic work that talks about the situational stuff, and link that as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I really liked is that you talked about, in each scale, one, iterating, looking at how you could improve, and two, slowly graduating higher and higher. I mean,
Yeah.
any everyone is going to be nervous. I am nervous before I make videos.
Mm-hmm.
And YouTube was nice because at first, when I was making them, I had such a small audience, right? And I
Okay.
didn't have to
Yeah.
worry about so many people watching and all my mistakes. But it
Yeah.
grew with my level of comfort. Now I speak to
Mm-hmm.
a couple thousand people every video, and I'm very comfortable because I've been conditioned as I've gone up. It was 10, then it was
Mm-hmm.
20 and 40 and 80, whatever it might be. So um,
Yeah.
it's all about finding those places, and also talking about things that you're comfortable speaking on, right? If I have
Yeah.
done research and I know more about my research than anyone else, it's
Yeah.
going to be very easy for me to talk about it because nobody's going to be like, "Yeah, you're wrong." I'm like, "No, I did all the research. I'm right."
Yeah.
So I think that those are just a couple things I wanted to call out because I really liked those elements of your story there.
Yep.
One
Thanks a
thing
lot.
one thing we talked a little bit about with speaking, or with anything really, is
Mm-hmm.
finding the right opportunities for you. So whether that's job opportunities, again, speaking opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurial opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, what can people do to really help themselves out there to be able to open as many doors as possible for themselves?
I would suggest people to be multifaceted. So let's say if you do one thing really better, just keep doing it, but at the same time improve your other aspects of life. So let's say if you do data science really well, just focus on it for a while, just master the art. Of course, you cannot master the art of anything, so there is always a need of improvement in any cases. So for sure you can let's say work on things and practice a lot. So practice a lot, be it anything, be it data science, be it public speaking. Practice a lot and start knocking at doors. So there is this saying, right? Opportunity knocks at the doors only once. But I would say knock at the doors, keep knocking at the doors until the door falls. So somehow there will be a opening, and then what you should do is try to capitalize on things. So start working on the first opportunity, do it well, start making it count. Do the second one well, do the third one well. So make it a habit. So keep going until you're done.
That's awesome. And I think that there is a caveat when it comes to knocking those. So, you have a very good network on LinkedIn. You've produced a lot of really good content, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have done all of these speaking things. You have these accolades to your name. And so, for example, if you reached out to me, I'd be a lot more likely to respond to it or engage with your communication than someone who has created a LinkedIn profile yesterday and doesn't even have a picture or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's really important to put some of your work out there, to show and engage in a lot of these communities, because I'm so much more likely to respond to someone or start a conversation with someone who has a track record. Just like getting a job, if you don't have any projects or you don't have any work experience, it's really hard to get recognition. With this, it's easy to respond to LinkedIn comments. So if someone has responded to 20 of my posts and asked really good questions on LinkedIn or on YouTube, I'm going to respond to a message from them. They've engaged with me. I've seen their name before. I know who they are. So that is part of that knocking process, is that it doesn't have to be a direct message on LinkedIn. It can be just engagement. It can be commenting. It can be starting those conversations.
Exactly, liking things, engaging with you, commenting on some of your videos. So then you get an attention. Okay, this guy has been writing me for a while. Maybe if he knocks my door, I should just leave a word. So that's how one should start engaging. So as you said, it's not about creating a profile today and asking for an opportunity tomorrow. So it's a process. So believe the process, and for sure one day you will get it if you trust the process.
Well, one parallel I'd really like to bring up between your speaking engagements and communicating on LinkedIn is, you were talking about how you start with the small groups and you're working on improving on those things. It's even easier to do that on LinkedIn, for example. You can start by just liking a bunch of stuff, right? That is engagement. Your little picture pops up right there, and that acclimates you to that engagement. And eventually, maybe you can leave a couple comments. Eventually, those types of things you can start posting yourself. And it's a very clear step process of how much engagement or how quote unquote scary it might be to some people. So, that's something from your experience. I think there's a broader maybe life lesson or something in there. It's like there are ways to make all of these things into scalable processes where the initial steps are not that scary. And we should try to do that in our lives. I know for me, if I'm looking at a new deep learning concept or something, I'm always terrified. I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't want there's so much to learn, all these things. But if I lower the barrier, if it's like, oh, I just have to read this chapter in this book and then I'll worry about implementing it later, it becomes so much easier. So those are the main questions I really had for you. If you have anything you'd like to share, any kind of final thoughts that you would like people to hear, I'll obviously link all of your connections, your LinkedIn. Do you have a Twitter as well?
Yes.
Okay, I'll link your LinkedIn, your Twitter, all of that stuff for anyone who's interested in communicating with you as well. But the floor is yours, whatever you would like to speak on.
I would say just keep doing what you are good at. So that's one main thing I used to say in some of my interviews. So just relax, just chill, keep doing what you are good at, and trust the process. Do it constantly. So it's not about doing just once and waiting for the results. So just do it consistently, believe in the process, and for sure there will be an opportunity. And whenever there is an opportunity, grab it with both your hands and do that well and make it a habit.
Well, one thing I want to add to that is that, you say the opportunity, you grab it with both hands, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I have these two options. I can do my master's in CS or I can do my master's in data science. What should I do? All of these things. And it's like, honestly, a lot of the time it doesn't matter, right? They're both good opportunities. Just go with one and fully commit. Just like you said, grab it with both hands, really dive in.
Exactly.
Because if the doubt is a huge productivity killer. It makes you, you never want to deal with that. Just make your choice and fully commit, like you said. So thank you. Go ahead.
Once you have taken a choice, you should never regret. So it's just like, okay, I should have opted for that. I should have opted for this. Never that, questions in the mind. So once you are committed, as you said, fully commit into a thing rather than thinking about options. So
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing is to feel like you made the wrong choice, and that doesn't have to happen if you fully commit, because you can't ever undo anything. So you should always dive in. But thank you. This was so awesome. I think your perspective will be really helpful to people, especially when they're thinking about, how to break into the job market, how to maybe get out of their comfort zone, especially with the speaking stuff. I mean, that for me is extremely valuable as well. So, that's an area I would love to expand on. So thank you again. And I will hopefully talk to you again very soon.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Kenji, and I wish you all the very best for the upcoming projects and your career. And I'm hopeful about 100K, 100,000K soon.
Yeah, well, I think we're getting close. My goal is to get past that by the end of the year, which I think is pretty comfortable. I don't want to jinx myself.
I'm sure about it. Yeah. So wishing you all the best for that as well.
Thank you.